Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today has to do with a group of Connecticut men who meet on a monthly basis to discuss Bible verses and talk about their understandings, their reactions to Bible passages. It's a group of Catholic men, by the way, and they typically take the upcoming Sunday Mass readings, the readings that will be coming up on the weekend, and they meet during the week, so they talk about it, and then they have the added benefit of when they attend Mass on the weekend, they hear it once again, and they've already had their discussion about it. And so the men just share their views, their opinions, their feelings. They're not a group of theologians. They're just regular average men. And I attended this particular meeting, and the benefit was as follows. The scripture that was being discussed and shared, which would be coming up on this Sunday, was the story in the New Testament where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph used to go up to Jerusalem on an annual basis to visit the temple, and apparently there was a caravan that would go up, a caravan of people that would travel that distance together because the roads and the highways were not very safe in those days to travel singularly. So people traveled in groups, and they were up there, I guess, in Jerusalem for a period of 3 days. And on the way back home, they noticed that Jesus was not with them. And Jesus was at the age of 12 in this particular scripture passage in the Bible. And so at 12 years old, he stayed behind. And Mary and Joseph realized that after about a day's journey, I guess on their first day, when they got to the evening, they noticed Jesus wasn't there, and they searched for him in the caravan. And he wasn't there, so they apparently prayed about it, got inspired to go back to Jerusalem and look for him. And that's what the scripture indicates. And when they got back to Jerusalem, they were looking for him. They found him in the temple, and he was in the temple talking to the priests in the temple about scriptures. And Mary and Joseph went and approached him and said, why did you do this? Your father and I were greatly troubled and worried and anxious. And Jesus responded, why were you troubled? Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I would be in my Father's house? And so the men shared what they got out of this scripture. And the understanding we got, the consensus of 5 men talking about this in one group. There was maybe a group of 15 men, but our particular group was 5, and there were 3 groups there. So our understanding was that Jesus was implying that he was learning things about God. He was coming into understandings about God, and he certainly got into the understanding that God was his Father. And what this reflects to us is that, as our catechism tells us, at least the catechism implies in many ways, that Jesus was both God and man, and that's the belief of Catholics anyway, that Jesus was born as a baby and grew into a boy and grew into a man, and at 30 years he started his public ministry for 3 years. And so Jesus had to learn that he was God as well as man. In the form of a man, he had to learn these things. He had to either be taught them or come to appreciate them and come to eventually realize that if he could communicate with God the Father, that he would be doing God's will, and then the miracles would come because he would be doing what God told him. So the bottom line is that our consensus in discussing this, and it's my personal belief as well, and I hope it helps some of you, that Jesus was a man and God, both simultaneously. He was both God and man. And the Catholic tradition teaches that Jesus always existed. Jesus always existed in the Spirit in heaven, but decided, and it was God's plan, that he would come and be born as a man, even though he was Spirit from the beginning of time with the Father in heaven. He would come and become a man. He comes as a boy and grows into a man. But he had to learn that he was God. When he became a man, he had to learn that he was God by his studying and his talking to God and his practicing of what God told him. So this is where the understanding of where people say that Jesus was both God and man. And why it's important to us is because we come to realize that Jesus was our model, and we too, as men, as women, we have to come to understand, we have to come to learn that the presence of God dwells within us as well. And, there are many religions out there, Christian religions, different denominations, and many of them believe that we are humans, but we are baptized and we receive the Spirit of God, and so we become humans who have the Spirit of God within us. And that's what Jesus was showing us by his life on earth. He came, he lived on earth as a human, but he proved to us that he was also Spirit. And he taught us that once he left the planet, he was going to send us the Spirit who would be our guide and teach us all things. And so the summary of all this is where the understanding of Christians of how the Spirit is guiding us, and we can live like Jesus. Jesus is our model. And this whole understanding came from this discussion, so I would share with you that. Plus, the other understanding we got from this was that the Blessed Virgin Mary was indicating that she had gotten anxious and worried and troubled about, what was happening and where Jesus was, that she and Joseph were anxious about this. And so that tells us another thing, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, she also was both human and spiritual as well. And she certainly had a spiritual side to her. History is filled with evidence of that. When the angel came to tell her that she was chosen to be the mother of God, the angel says to her in the Bible, "Hail Mary, full of grace." And what that means, full of grace, it means full of God. The word grace means the presence of God. So if somebody says to you, "Hail, O full of grace one," which the angel was saying to her, "Hail Mary, full of grace," they're really calling you out and saying that you are filled with the presence of God. And if an angel is telling you that, you have it on good report and good evidence. All right, so I hope you appreciate this in a couple of ways, because it says to us that if you talk to other people about God, or you talk to other people about the Bible readings, you come to understanding. You come to a better understanding because several people give their opinions and their viewpoints. And their opinions and their viewpoints are coming from their spiritual side. We're all carrying the Spirit of God within us. Even in the beginning where God made Adam and Eve, it says that he reached down and picked up some clay and formed his image, Adam and Eve. And then it says he breathed his Spirit into them and they became living beings. So that's another indication to us that we are humans, these people made out of clay. And then we received the Spirit, Adam and Eve received the Spirit by God breathing his Spirit into them. And so they received the Spirit of God. And so too we, when we are born, we receive the Spirit of God. And when we are baptized, and other religions have other ways in which they pray over each other and explain the spirituality of people. But almost every religion I know of talks about the humanity of people and the spirituality of people. And I thought I would stress that today to help all of us realize that's why we can all talk to God, and that's why we can all do what God tells us, because God's Spirit is dwelling within each one of us. Our next coincidence miracle is about a friend of mine who had read both of my books, called. She was having some difficulty making some decisions and some choices and getting frustrated, and we all go through that. And she was praying for wisdom. She got an inspiration to call me, and so I prayed and called her back and gave her my advice was to use the section in our books which talks about fleecing. That's spelled F-L-E-E-C-I-N-G, fleecing. And fleecing in Bible terms is where we ask God to inspire us with a clue, inspire us with something that will happen in our life, which will indicate to us which choices we should make. And the book explains there's about 12 cases in the Bible where I found people had done this. So I asked her to ask God for a sign, and she did, and she called me back and said, Tony, I asked God for a sign, and if I see daisies, flowers, if I see daisies, that'll tell me I'm supposed to do the thing that I'm trying to decide to do. And after I got that understanding, Tony, I put the TV on, and I was preparing supper, so the TV went into screensaver mode, and I looked up, and the screensaver mode was plastered with daisies floating sideways across the screen. Then she told me that she was getting ready for a trip to Florida to visit some friends, and she's going to be there for a few weeks, and so she was looking for a salon where she could get her nails done and her eyebrows done, which I guess is pretty unique. I don't frequent salons myself, but apparently it's unique. And so she was looking for a salon that would do both, and she was Googling it, and lo and behold, she finds a salon, and the name of the salon is Daisies Salon, which was another coincidence telling her again that she was doing the right thing. And the salon right after that she could also go to wasn't named Daisies, but their phone number ended in the number 38, and 38 is the number that reminds us of Jesus. So she had two confirmations for her fleecing. If she saw a sign of daisies, and God inspired her to know that that would be the sign telling her to do the thing. She was trying to choose between two things, and if she saw daisies, that would be the indication of which item to pick. And so she was delighted, and she was confirmed twice by seeing clues of daisies twice, so she was more confident. And this was not a life or death decision. This was just a choice of two things. And so this is a very good way for you to pick choices and ask God to help you about which choice to pick. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.